Unlike its older brother Dynasty Warrior, who tries to completely revamp the combat with its latest installment, Samurai Warriors 5 retains the charge-based combat system from the old titles. But since the game is a soft reboot for the franchise, all of the movesets have been changed from the previous game, with only a few animations being reused in some moves. In fact, this is the very first Samurai Warriors game where there are movesets for air attacks. When you first began the game, the moveset is quite limited, obviously, but as you progress, you unlock more moves and special effects for the moves you can execute. The difference between a character that is just starting out and a fully trained character is quite drastic, as you can see here with the main protagonist of the game, Nobunaga. This is how he fights when I first start the game. And here is him when I have finished the main story. Hyper Attack also makes a return from the previous title, which are attacks executed by pressing the charge attack button without doing any normal attack beforehand. These attacks allow the player character to quickly dash through the enemy soldiers, which allow for greater mobility and offense. But these attacks can't be used against enemy officers. One key different thing compared to the hyper attack of the previous title is that the character can now change directly into normal attacks if you press the attack button after executing a hyper attack. This makes for an even faster and tighter combat compared to the previous title, as you can use hyper attack to shorten the distance and then immediately get into the attack motion to go all out on the enemy officer without having to wait for the hyper attack animation to finish. It does make for a less varied and somewhat limited movesets to some, but it's definitely more efficient and I prefer it like this. The muscle bar under the health bar will fill up as you fight, and when it is completely filled up, you can perform a powerful attack that can wipe out an entire screen of enemies in seconds. As an extra thing, aside from your muscle bar, there is also a blue bar above your health bar, which is called the rage bar in English, I believe. When it is filled up, by pressing the R2 button, your character will enter an extra powerful state with increased stats. While in this state, you can perform an even more powerful muscle attack called Muscle Frenzy that ends with your character posing into a beautiful drawing that resembles traditional Japanese art, except Sandayu, that dude looks like he stepped out of Donkey's Dungeon or something. A new addition to the game is Ultimate Skill, which replaces the old special attack from previous titles, where if you press R1 combined with either square, triangle, circle, or X, the character will execute special moves depends on the equipped Ultimate Skill, which can range from simple stats buff to powerful offensive moves. The ultimate skills are really useful and powerful. So powerful in fact, that the game forbids you from spamming them and you have to wait for the cooldown bar to fill up before you can use them again. Not that it makes that much of a difference anyways, since the charge attacks are really way too busted in this game. You can also equip items to the characters for them to use mid-combat by pressing the left or right button to choose the item, and then pressing down button to use said item. These items can range from increasing attack to generate health or muscle. These items can be real game changers if you know when to use them. Okay, now that the introduction of the game's basic combat is over, let's address the elephant in the room, the weapon system, aka clones. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, what I mean is that by revamping the combat and movesets of every character, the devs obviously don't have the time nor the money to make completely unique movesets for every character in the game, which are 25 playable characters plus 2 mature versions of the 2 protagonists of the game, and air code 10 unique NPCs. Unique, non-playable characters. Except they are totally playable, and what is even mandatory in one stage 2, and they all have generic movesets that are totally inferior to the actual playable characters. Why is this a thing? anyway. To somewhat compensate for this clone issue, the game has a weapon system where every character can use every weapon type in the game, and you can choose which weapon for them to use before starting a battle, provided your character has sufficient weapon mastery to wield said weapon. Though each character has one favorite weapon for themselves. For example, Nobunaga and Kenshin have the Odachi as their favorite weapon, and by using said favorite weapon, the character will gain powerful moves exclusive to them. Also, somewhat new to the series is how every weapon now has a gimmick unique to them. The Odachi is the balance weapon that has everything for every situation. The katana is the more agile version of balance weapon. The bow and arrows are range focused. The hand cannon is for people who love Michael Bay movies. The sword and gun has combinations of melee and projectile attacks. The hammer has every charge attack to be chargeable to become even more powerful charge attack. The spear has extended attack strength on horse. The great spear trades off speed for range and power of a running truck aiming for the main character of an isekai anime. The twin swords offer incredible attack speed and extended attack strength. The naginata has special attack strength in the air. The knuckles have a gimmick where after a charge attack, the character will turn red, and the next charge attack will become even more powerful version of itself. The origami summons shikigami to fight together with you. The drum conjures up edgy orbs to shock the enemy. The shuriken allows you to cancel your attacks into the running animation. And the kusurigama. With the weapon gimmick, the exclusive moves, the ultimate skills, and musou attacks combined make the characters feel somewhat different to one another despite sharing a good chunk of their movesets with each other. But having said that, the characters only start to feel different after you have unlocked a good chunk of their movesets, meaning you have to grind for a while, and until then you get to feel quite a lot of did I just play a character with the same moveset a stage earlier? To be frank, I think the everyone can use any weapon gimmick is a pretty pointless thing in this game because unlike say Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8 where every character can equip 2 weapons at once and the player can switch the weapons on the fly giving more options to approach a combo, Samurai Warriors 5 only let the character wield one weapon in a battle. Aside from maybe not liking some certain movesets, why would I go out of my way to make the character use a game version of another moveset and make the character less unique? And the charge attacks are now just way too busted that almost every charge attack can clear the entire room of enemies, making the normal attacks feel more like filler that you have to drag yourself through until you reach the desirable charge attack that you want to execute, further making the moveset pool feels even more limited than it actually is. With that said though, if you can look past the problem of the characters sharing a rather very limited movesets with each other, then Samurai Warriors 5 offers the most satisfying feels good power trip with the most polished combat the series have ever had. It stays true to the core gameplay that has been working for almost 2 decades now, improving on set gameplay and extra flares and oomph to it. You just have to endure the initial grind to get to the part where more options are unlocked for you to have fun with. Speaking of grind, aside from the age-old method of wailing on the enemy to gain enough EXP to level up, you also have to grind out weapon mastery and skill points in order to strengthen your character. About weapon mastery is how efficient a character is at wielding certain weapons. Some of the better weapons require weapon mastery to be at a certain level, ranging from F to S, or the character won't be able to use that weapon. Most of the ultimate skills also require the character to have weapon mastery to be at a certain level to be unlocked. Fortunately, you can gain stock points after every battle to help you increase the weapon mastery faster. You can also buy these points in the shop to help ease the pain of grinding if you have some cash money to spare. Speaking of weapon, throughout the battle, you can pick up weapon crates every now and then. Then after the battle, these weapon crates will transform into random weapons with a random number of element slots attached to them. The quality of weapons will depend on the difficulty you're playing, as well as how many difficult stars the stage has. There is also an option to buy weapons from the shops, though these don't have elements attached to them, only empty element slots. Since what weapons you get and its quality is totally random, not dependent on the character you play nor the weapon the character was using throughout the stage. This means that if the RNG doesn't favor you, some characters might get stuck with not so good weapons for a very long time. After you have gained a weapon to your liking, you have the option to further upgrade the weapon by visiting the blacksmith. Using your hard-earned cash money, you can upgrade the elements on a weapon to higher level with the maximum level being 9. Also, if your weapon happens to have some lonely empty element slots, you can add in elements of your choice from the materials you pick up during battles or by disassembling unneeded weapons. The level of freedom in crafting your weapons means that you have total control over how to make the best weapon that suits your character or your playstyle. You unfortunately don't have the option to add new slots though. My gripe with the weapons is that the weapon list is very limited, with only 15 types of weapons, 3 weapon tiers, 2 you get from playing normally, and the third one you get by looking up guides on the internet. Very few weapon skins and weapons of the same tier don't differ in stats at all. There is little to no incentive to upgrade another weapon once you have already crafted the one best suited for your characters, and it won't take long before you can craft one yourself. Then you have skill points and this game's version of skill trees. Basically, after every battle, you will earn some skill points that you can use to spend on the character's skill trees to strengthen them. This can range from simply just raising stats to unlock new ultimate skill. You can also buy more stock skill points from the shop to help ease the pain of pointless grinding. Despite the nodes of the skill trees are more or less the same across all characters, the appearances of these trees are all personalized to be the family crest of the characters. That's a very neat detail and very cool to look at too. However, you will spend quite some time of the game in these skill trees, as there are 25 plus 10 characters in the game and each has their own skill tree, and you will have to navigate the menu to get into these skill trees. Move to a node on the tree, select the node, confirm with the game that you want to unlock the node, move on to another node, confirm with the game again, rinse and repeat until you complete it all. Needless to say, by the time I'm done with the main story and moved on to the post-game grind, I have become so sick of this that I wish the game had used the linear level-up system of the old game instead. Let's move away from the combat and onto the stage design now. If you were expecting wide open field offering you freedom of choice in how to advance the stage, then tough luck. Samurai Warriors 5 still retains the square and hallway design philosophy that has been plaguing the series for a few titles now. Thankfully, the map design isn't as bad as Samurai Warriors 4's. Not that's a hard accomplishment, I think. As there are more visible open spaces in between the hallway paths, the dialogues are also more compacted and missions are given out more frequently, which helps keep the dialogue lags to a minimum so you don't have to waste too much time waiting for characters to finish their blah 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 before you can proceed to the next part of the stage. A big problem that plagues many of Samurai Warriors 4 stages. Also, returning from Samurai Warriors 4 is the ability to switch between 2 characters on the battlefield at any given time. This further speeds up the pace of the battle, giving the player little to no dead downtime while going through the stage. More fun time mowing down endless enemies after enemies, which has been the selling point of Musou games since the PS3 days. What about the difficulty though, you may ask? Well, the enemy officers are a lot more aggressive compared to Samurai Warriors 4, that's for sure, and can even high-bar more through your attack to bitch slap you out of your combo and reduce your health bar to a blinking red mess if given the chance. But the moveset this time around are just way too busted that defeat is really not an option unless you really want to. The real challenge of the game though are the archers and the gunners. These flocking sons of peasants will waste no time gunning you down if given the chance. If you see a group of them, kill them first, kill them fast, kill them dead. One thing I definitely is not a fan about the new difficulty balance is how to make air quote boss battles more difficult than they actually are. The game inflates the health of the bosses to 100-fold compared to normal officers, making these fights way longer than they have any rights to be. Here is what it looks like when I fight a generic officer. And here is what it looks like when I fight the boss of the same stage. Also making a return is the red zones. These are zones where the enemy hold strong influence over, and while in these zones, the enemy will have increased health and attack. To disable these red zones, you need to find a tremor somewhere in the middle of the zone and defeat them. Unlike Samurai Warriors 4, where your attacks pretty much becomes useless until you disable the red zone, the red zones in this game have been balanced and don't stop you dead in your tracks. They will make your life difficult, but if your character is strong enough or you're good enough with the game, you can still scrap by. For the most part, I'm positive with this balance as the red zone now no longer completely kills the game pacing almost every time you encounter one. On the other hand, the most memorable part of Spirit of Thunder to me was when the final stage got completely dyed in blood red. Really makes it feel like you were going off on one last suicide mission and really hammered down just how hopeless the whole situation was. I unfortunately don't get such moments in this game, not even with the final battles. Whew, that was a lot just talking about the gameplay. Let's talk about the story and characters next. Though before I move on to talk about them, if you're the type who absolutely must avoid any kind of spoilers no matter how small, please skip to the timestamp on the screen. Okay, are the spoiler-phobic punch gone yet? Let's get on with the show then. As you probably already know, Samurai Warriors 5 is yet another Koei game retelling the life and death of Japan's most famous warlord, Oda Nobunaga, and one of the most important figures in his life, Akechi Mitsuhide. Because the story only really focuses on Nobunaga and Mitsuhide, the game's story doesn't end at the Battle of Osaka at the very end of the Sengoku period like other games. Instead, it ends at Honnoji for Nobunaga and Yamazaki for Mitsuhide. To make up for the latter half of the period not being told, the game greatly expands on the early life of Nobunaga and how he came to be the most powerful warlord of the period. The game starts out pretty great in my opinion, with solid writing in introducing the time period and the protagonist of the game, Oda Nobunaga. When Nobunaga meets the other focus of the game, Akechi Mitsuhide, the game illustrates the differences between the two pretty clearly, with Nobunaga being a pragmatic, ambitious man that others seem to have a hard time keeping up, and Mitsuhide being the by-the-book honorable warrior, foreshadowing the eventual clash between the two later down the road. The earlier game up until when Nobunaga arrives at the capital is honestly the game at its peak narrative-wise, and then it just goes downhill from there. The historical Nobunaga is well known as a ruthless warlord who shows no mercy towards his enemies, so much so that he earns the nickname Dairokuten Mao, or the Demon Lord of the Sixth Heaven. The game, being based on history and all, needs to find a way to shape Nobunaga into this role, and it has taken great liberties while doing so to distinguish itself from 100 other media also about Nobunaga, and I dislike quite a lot with what they did honestly, as I see those things a huge wasted potential to a lot of the characters. Some characters established personalities and motivations got turned on their heads for the sake of advancing the plot. Some characters' relations or character arcs never quite go anywhere or reach a satisfying ending either. The only character who manages to have a decent character arc and a somewhat satisfying end is surprisingly Yamanaka Shikanosuke, something that you can't really say for the majority of the cast, except maybe two other unique NPCs, Okabe Motonobu and Takeda Katsuyori. Really speak volume to how Koei treats their actual playable characters. The biggest offenders to me being No, Mitsuki, the man Nobunaga himself, and Sandayu. Freaking Sandayu, man. I know that the game is based on history and not all historical characters have a satisfying end to their career and all, but considering just how much labor the game has taken with its source materials, I'm honestly really disappointed that the game didn't do more or at least take liberties in a way that doesn't make the story go off the deep end like it does. Wait, what about Mitsuhide's story, you may be wondering? Well, about that, Mitsuhide's story is more or less a supplement to Nobunaga's story instead of being a story about Mitsuhide himself. Mitsuhide's story first starts with him fighting under the banner of the Saito, and then by circumstances he was forced to wander the land for a while, fighting alongside and against many important figures that would play major roles in the story later down the line, before he settled down under the banner of the Oda. Mitsuhide's story initially started off great too, as it offers a truly unique experience to distinguish itself from Nobunaga's story and manages to introduce major enemy characters early, so their involvements later in the story wouldn't need introduction or seem out of place. But that unique experience stops when Mitsuhide joins the Oda, and the majority of his battles are the same as there in Nobunaga's story, only differ in pre and post battle events and maybe some dialogues during the battle itself. And when Mitsuhide does get a battle unique to himself, Nobunaga's story suspiciously have a few jumps ahead in time. It's as if Mitsuhide's unique battles are just there to explain the holes left by Nobunaga's story. After you have completed both Nobunaga's and Mitsuhide's stories, the game will unlock if stages. What are these if stages, you may be wondering? Well, I'll leave that to you to find out. Just know that these if stages are pretty much a requirement if you want some sort of a satisfying ending to some of the characters. Hands down the best thing about the game. All the models are now very stylized to give off a traditional Japanese art feel to it. Everything is bright and colorful and so full of life. You can now clearly make out the place where the conversations are taking place during the pre and post battle events, and not just some generic camp or Japanese room like back in Samurai Warriors 4. The characters also now have some unique little animations that breathe even more life into them, like Shikanosuke here fixing his little cap, or Toshimitsu fixing his frilly colored thing. One thing I don't like though is that the characters still use generic animations for the majority of the time, so in some scenes the emotions the characters were expressing can't quite match the animations they were doing, like how Shikanosuke here is audibly angry at Motori but only has a mildly annoyed look on his face.
それはどんなってその手に乗るかよどうせお得意の計り事だろ
The game also runs really well on the PS4, with no visible frame drop for 98% of the time. The only time I see some hiccups here and there are during the Honoji stage where literally everything is on fire, which is understandable. Initially, I was actually pretty disappointed with the OST as I didn't think a single track stood out while I was playing the game. But then I listened to the OST on its own and to my surprise the game has a lot of bangers in it. I mean, there is a lot of going on during a battle, from needing to pay attention to what the character is saying, to paying attention to where the characters are on the map, while also needing to focus on the fighting on screen at the same time too. All these things combined kinda rounds out the amazing OST in my experience. Or maybe I'm just an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. Overall, I think Samurai Warriors 5 offers a very solid OST with both amazing new original songs as well as solid remixes of old ones. If I have something to complain about, it would be that I think the game doesn't have a song that sounds Final Battle-ish enough for me. Samurai Warriors 4 gave us Destiny for Honoji Incident. Searching Chaos for the Battle of Sekigahara. Battles in the Wind for the Battle of Osaka. And Sanadamaru for, well, the Battle of Sanadamaru. When I listen to these songs, I just know that they are definitely made for battles that end the era and that things are definitely going down. Whereas when I listen to the songs of Honoji or Yamazaki in Samurai Warriors 5, I just think, oh, that's pretty good, I guess. With 2 extended campaigns as well as what if scenarios, the story mode alone already offers plenty of enjoyable hours for you to feel like a god mowing down helpless animal soldiers. God, that feels good. Every stage has its own set of missions that can be carried out, with some optional missions require you to play a certain character or knew what was coming beforehand to trigger the mission. So there's a lot of incentive to replay story stages to complete all the missions and see how the stage differs or what bonus dialogues you can unlock. Then there is Citadel mode, a bonus mode where the game puts you into compressed versions of the maps from the story mode. In these stages, your main objective is to protect certain points on the map and either wait for the timer to run out or to defeat the enemy commanders when they appear. Make for some rather fun and short playing sections if you just want to hop into the game to smash some heads. Though Citadel mode is not just a fun little bonus mode, it is, in fact, where you'll be spending a lot of hours in after you're done with the story. The reason is because this is the only place where you can get materials to upgrade facilities. These facilities being the dojo, a place where you can use stock XP, weapon mastery points, and skill points to strengthen your characters. The blacksmith, where you can upgrade weapons or disassemble ones you don't need. The shop, where you can buy usable items, elements, stock weapon mastery points, and skill points to use them in the blacksmith or the dojo later. And no, you can't buy stock XP here. What the heck, Koei? Lastly, there's the stable, where you can buy horses to ride, transfer XP and skills from one horse to another to make better horses if breeding for large creatures is your thing. But wait, that's not all. Aside from gaining materials to upgrade facilities, the 2 characters you bring into battle will gain relationship points with each other after every victory here. If they have special relationship with each other, like say Nobunaga and Mitsuhide, and their relationship points reach 100, a special interaction event will be unlocked for your viewing pleasure. There are a total of 25 plus 10 characters in this game, each with special relationships with several others. Each battle gives about 40 points according to my experience, and each battle shaves at least a few minutes of your precious remaining time on this earth. It honestly doesn't take that long to unlock all the character events if you know the fastest way to do it, but I still think it's a pretty shallow way to artificially extend the game's playtime. All in all, I think the game doesn't exactly lack content, but the quality pales in comparison to past titles. With that all said, I think Samurai Warriors 5 is the most polished Samurai Warriors game to date, with a really pretty look and a solid OST attached, completed with an upgrade version of the old combat that's sure to satisfy old fans. But the game also played too safe at the same time that it probably won't persuade those who hate the 1 vs 1000 format of the genre. The game takes risks with its story and characters, but those risks make up for a rather unsatisfying story that probably won't win any fan, especially considering that they outright cut half of the old roster and the old versions of the characters are essentially gone for good now. The game also lacks quality content compared to previous titles, which can be a major turnoff for many. And with that, I give the game the following scores.